Thank you for coming today. Thank you for your time to joining me and the interviews for Trevendi. Maybe at the beginning you can tell us a little bit about yourself and Albatros exhibitions.
I moved into the travel industry in 2008. Before that, I worked in packaged consumer goods company, so completely different. Have a marketing sales background. And what was interesting, I first managed an adventure travel company, group travel company from 2008, 2009. And then in 2010, I was asked to manage a polar expedition company. That was Quark Expeditions. And the interesting thing is, at that time, I didn't know anything about ships. I didn't know about polar regions. It was just a nice challenge and I accepted it. And then I seriously fell in love with the product and all the nice aspects of these. Yeah, I call it the most sexy product in travel. I got into ships and managing ships. So and I did that until 2017. We sold the company and then joined. Started working actually for the owner of Albatros. First of all, managing for him and cruise company in Miami, Victory Cruise Lines. He asked me to move over here to Denmark to manage expeditions and also manage his other international businesses. So Albatros Expeditions, we currently have 2 ships, expedition style. So they're small, the maximum 200 passengers. We mainly operate in polar regions, so Antarctica and the Arctic, a little bit in between, of course. Interesting thing is about our company, although we're based in a small country, Denmark, we sell globally and we seriously sell. If you look to our customer demographics, it's almost like the United Nations. It's not uncommon to have 20, 30 nationalities on board. Biggest markets. It used to be China, but it's now more the US, UK, Germany, Scandinavia, of course, Australia, Singapore and Japan used to be big, but the Asian markets are still pretty much closed.
How is it now with coronavirus? Any coronavirus in the polar region? How did the crisis impact the company?
Yeah, badly, because you probably followed the news that some cruise lines started, but all the cruises that started are close to home. They're basically domestic England cruises or some cruises in the Mediterranean, and that's not our piece of cake. And that the skill of our ships are not meant for those operations. We tried to actually start in Greenland last month in August. But the Greenland government just they didn't want to give it a go, and now our next start is aimed at November in Argentina. Although the Argentinian government has declared that they will open up for cruises, it's still a lot of uncertainties. So it's uncertainty all the way.
So how the coronavirus taught you about running a business?
Of course, it's interesting that what happened in weeks completely changed our plans and outlook for years. I don't know if you can remember, what was it, January, February, when Corona started in China. I think we all here in Europe and in the US, we thought like, oh, this is a Chinese problem, or this is something Asian and it will go away and it will take 2 months and 3 months and then it's over. Suddenly we now start to understand that we are in the biggest crisis since the Second World War, and all our long-term planning, you can throw it away. And you see this also now with airlines. We all now focus basically on opportunities in the next month. That's the hardest thing. And we initially thought, okay, it will take a few months. Then it was like, well, it will take a year, and now it's 1.5 years further, and I think it will hurt us another at least 6 months, but it will go over. And so what we have done as well was, we navigated short term really on opportunities, and we actually have released our future products 2.5 years almost in advance, and that helps us because we see customers who have the same uncertainty, like, no, I don't want to travel in the next month. However, this is a bucket list product. I want to have it, so let's book for in 2 years in advance. And we have changed completely perceptions that people will not book holidays 18 months out. Well, they do.
And what it means, do you think, like for sustainable development, and the whole crisis somehow helps the environment? So on one
Yeah.
hand, we should be happy. How do you see sustainability in this, and what does Albatros Expedition think about sustainability and sustainable tourism? How do you approach it?
Oh, that's actually a couple of questions, but if it really changed, I think it's hard to say because there will be positive and negative impacts. Let me start off with that. Of course, travel stopped, and that was better for the planet for some time. But it's interesting that just before Corona, can you remember that there were actually very critical questions around, for example, flying, and here in Europe, especially in Scandinavia, there was this concept of fly shaming, and now you see that that concept has disappeared, and I don't see it coming back quickly, because people also now saw like, oh, we really missed travel, we really missed getting into a plane, where you could see that there was kind of a bit of a shame. No, the shame is gone. People are really looking forward to travel, but at the same time, I think people will be more conscious. And I give you an example. So we put our long-term products out, and to our surprise, the longer voyages are booking so much better than the shorter voyages. And we were always an operator with a lot of shorter voyages. But again, we are changing because we have to be flexible. Our product line, last month, we just added 2 longer voyages because they're selling well. And think about that is, I think, more conscious traveling. So instead of the 4 or 5 short holidays that certain people had of a week or 10 days, they think and more critically look at travel, and also the challenges of travel, and think like, okay, let's go one time a year, but a proper one, a good one. So I see that changing. It looks like a little trend. Like let's see if that continues. At the same time, it gave us all some reflection, and as a result of the crisis, also well, with airlines, older planes were retired. In our business, older ships were retired, which is a little bit of a cleanup because older ships and older planes are more damaging. At the same time, in companies before Corona crisis, sustainability was a hot discussion item and an important one. But if the priority is survival, so to be honest, in the last 2 years, we didn't develop anything further in our sustainability thinking. We just continued with what we developed before, but we simply didn't have the time, the energy, the resources to make next steps. So do you understand what I mean? I see positives, I see negatives. Overall, I don't know what kind of influence the crisis had on sustainability. Time will tell.
I think this is absolutely natural that companies are on pause, and with everything, no clients, it means also no active sustainability activities and new goals. But at least keeping what you've had before, it's already a lot. So if you can tell us a little bit more about what was before COVID and your green initiatives, and separately about the ship, because this is some great stuff that you're doing.
Yeah. So I think it's important to start on that we as the Albatros Group and all the individual companies related to that, we support the 10 principles of the United Nations Global Compact program. And what does it mean, support? That means that we take them into our daily work, and that we report ourselves against it. And I actually like that program because it goes further than just environment. and also covers topics like human rights, labor, and taking care of your employees very well, and not only here in an office in Denmark, but also on the ships or in your safari camps in Africa, and also anti-corruption. Corruption is, I think, a danger to our world. So it goes further than the environment. So that is for us the overall scheme. And if you talk about Albatros expeditions, you mentioned the green program, but let's start that there's a natural incentive to be green in shipping, because fuel nowadays is extremely expensive. So it's important, first of all, to optimize your fuel usage, even with the older ships that we still have, because that saves us money, but it also reduces carbon dioxide emissions. So and we are doing that by so we really looked critically at our itineraries, and they are completely, I would say, fuel optimized. And what I mean with that is that between, for example, visits and landing sites, we try to plan them with absolute economical speed. We plan long activities, long excursions, which means that we park the boat and the boat is idle, so we don't burn fuel. So we have absolutely completely optimized programs and itineraries. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned the green program on board. And this started off by removing plastics and especially the single-use plastics, but think about, individual butter, jam package, water bottles, little bottles with, the shampoos and etc. So remove all of that. We introduced recycling on board, which is not easy because the ports that we visit don't always have proper recycling options. So we started lobbying for recycling options in all the ports that we visit. We looked critically at the detergents used and the washing the laundry. Laundry is actually quite polluting activity, whether it's on ships or in hotels. And that's why you always see this sticker: if you don't want your towel to be washed, don't throw it on the ground or whatever. Always say, oh, that's because they're too lazy to wash the towels. No, that's really not the case. Washing towels and linen every day is very damaging for the environment.
And it's also additional spending on the energy and the water.
Exactly.
As well. So it's savings. But of course, I understand the motivation behind optimizing your fuel. But why have you decided to go a step farther and look at waste and the green program on board? Because here, is it also mainly the savings or some other motivation?
So there's two things. First of all, sustainable travel is in I call it the DNA of this company. And what I mean with that, so Albatros is still a family company, and the head of sustainability overall is actually a family member. It's the daughter of the owner. So sustainability has a place here in the ownership, in the boardroom, and is put through the whole organization. And what I thought was so funny about when I came here in the office for the first time is that they have these wall with the awards, and there is a sustainability award from 1995. And I was thinking like, oh, I was still in university at that time, or probably more having fun actually. But just transfer yourself back to 1995. I don't think many travel companies even knew what sustainable travel was about. So it's in the DNA. But the second thing is also that you have to take responsibility, more responsibility, I would argue, if you visit areas like Antarctica and Greenland, where you see there the negative impact that we have as humans on the world. And I don't think you can just simply show it and do if nothing is happening and that's it. So I think that gives us as Albatros Expeditions an additional responsibility to completely optimize our operations on board, with the ships, with fuel, to have the smallest negative impact possible.
To clarify, all the changes on board result in more savings, or that's more expensive than if you did just regular single-use plastics and
Yeah.
regular detergents?
So anything fuel related gives also a saving in money, which is good. The other programs, sometimes you save a bit, sometimes you invest a bit, and I give you examples. When we introduced sustainable seafood is more expensive. When we introduced all our coffees and teas on board, and chocolate are fair trade, that is more expensive. So there you invest a little bit. With detergents, you save a little bit. As I said, with fuel, there's always a natural incentive. With all the other programs, you have to do it because you believe in it, and not so much because you think you can save money with it. Because, yeah, as I said, sometimes you save a little bit, sometimes you pay a little bit extra.
How do customers react? Do you communicate your green initiatives to the customers? Are they happy? Do you see that it sells? Do you sell more because you're green, or just like people don't care much?
Yeah, what we usually see is some kind of transition on board. It's fair to say that we get high net value customers, and they come on board, and yeah, they care, but when you show them these vulnerable places, I believe we change most of our customers, and they become true Earth or Polar ambassadors. And so you see them on the way back, basically, you see them looking way more critical also to us than on the way. I don't think we get a lot of business because of our sustainable angle in the beginning. However, now it is known that we have the vessels with the lowest carbon emissions per passenger. We see it attracts some, how do you call it, partners. So some university groups, for example, from America, that they are critical on the impact that their products have. So it's not so much, I would say, end customers that prefer us because of our sustainable initiatives, but there's certainly partners in between that are now attracted to our position.
Good news. Talking about coming back to your green initiatives, if you can tell us about the Victory, the Ocean Victory, the ship, the investment, and I heard that you haven't been promoting it that much.
Yes. Yes. So the Ocean Victory. What I call it, because it's funny. I know the designers or the people that started developing the ships very well. And this is not something that started 2 years ago. This is a project that started, I have to think about it, probably 2013, 14. So when I worked for a different company, and they started their thinking on, the new world, the new range of ships and what ships should look like. So, and over all these years, the ship and this design has been optimized with new learnings and further new learnings. And to give you a couple of examples, so of course the ship is built with the cleanest engines in the world, cleanest engines that also only actually burns the cleanest fuels in the world, which is called MGO. And that is a nice step forward. That's a nice advantage. Now, I have to say here, a lot of our competitors, they stop. They say, okay, we have now a beautiful new vessel with beautiful, better, cleaner engines. Great. And to give you an example, it is an important step, because the new engines, they, for example, reduce, they call it the nitrox oxide, which is also a greenhouse gas. It's not only about CO2, it's also nitrogen. This is reduced by up to 75% versus older ships. So that's a big gain. But I think it doesn't stop with the engines. What you also will notice on the Ocean Victory and the Ocean Albatros is it has a very strange nose, the ship. A strange bow in ship terms, but people say it has a strange nose. This is actually called an X-bow. It's a Norwegian patent. It's an innovation by Norwegian shipbuilders Ulstein. And it gives big benefits when seas are rough. So when you have waves. So instead of when you have waves with a traditional ship, the ship starts slamming against the waves. This ship will cut through the waves and gives a very beautiful, even water movement. And that has a lot of benefits for customers, actually, because it's more stable, it's more comfortable, it will likely lead to less seasickness. But for us as operators, just think about, again, energy and energy consumption. If you started slamming into the sea, it's very, very inefficient. You burn fuel, but you hardly move forward. Well, with this cutting that we almost do with the waves, you maintain your speed, you don't burn a lot of extra fuel. So in rough weather, our ships are so much more efficient than the traditional ships.
I don't know if you want to answer to this or not. Like, I heard that you haven't been promoting it very actively. Are you active in promoting your green initiatives, or it's more like when there's an opportunity you mention it, or you have some clear strategy?
Yeah, one of the important things with our business model is that we actually don't sell directly to customers. So we are not, as they say, a B2C business. We are B2B. So we work with distributors, travel agents, special interest groups, tour operators all over the world. So there is a group in between. So what is important with us is that in our sales and marketing strategy, that we tell our partners around the world what we do and what we offer. And they have to communicate that on to the customers. And then, of course, when the customers come on board, we tell them also about our programs. But we are not a company that invests a lot of money in marketing and advertisements to put the name out there. Because, we actually just work very efficient with about 2,000 partners around the world. So as long as these 2,000 partners know exactly what we do, that's very efficient and easy for us.
But apart from informing what you do, you earlier mentioned that you have to take the responsibility, especially when visiting ports and such fragile destinations. Do you somehow raise awareness, educate your partners as well around that, and your suppliers? Do you take this step further to?
Yes, absolutely. And to give you an example with suppliers, so the hotel operations on a ship, we actually outsource that to a company, but we challenge them to offer us the most sustainable hotel product that is available in the world, even go further than that. So that's how we work together with our suppliers. But indeed, with our partners, what we do, so we have regular newsletters. Really regular newsletters, about twice a month, where we inform them about everything, but also about sustainable projects, progress, plans, etc. Then what we also do is regular webinars. And again, the webinars are about a range of topics. It's not just about sustainability. Funny enough, our last webinar, which was actually last week, Wednesday, was specifically about Antarctica and the protection of Antarctica. So that had a big sustainability content, actually. Mm-hmm. So webinars, newsletters, and then also social media are our ways to communicate, our programs with principally our partners.
How about guides?
Guides.
Guides is an important element for every tour company. I think that we can do anything, and as long as the guides don't know and don't implement, it's just useless. So how do you work with guides to make sure that they also transmit the right message? They understand your vision and your values.
Yeah, it goes very easy and natural. First of all, of course, there's a communication perspective that for all the guides, they learn our philosophies and principles, and that includes our view on sustainability. It also, for example, includes our view on diversity.
Do you like offer some training, introduction training to the company? How was like on the practicality? How does it work with guides? How do you?
Yes. So what we do is we provide them first, of course, with the documents, and we have some training documents that are really to the point about our policies. But then before we start what we call a season, we bring the guides together on the ship, and our team here travels to the ship and will present the important things again, or the latest development.
And then do you somehow evaluate the guides, what they do? I remember, just to give you a story, we had a tour company that was really the group that was running the excursions were really against single-use plastic, and they did not provide any single-use plastic on the tours. But then the guide went to the shop and bought a bottle for himself, and the customers were really angry. So how do you make sure that actually the guides live the values and actually deliver what you ask them to deliver?
Yeah, so as I said, it is to communicate very clearly expectations and expectations of the company and our policies. I wanted to also give you an example on diversity. We take a very, how do you call it? It's not aggressive. Aggressive is not the word, but for us, our diversity manifest, which is also available on our website, is absolutely critical. And we want everyone to feel welcome on board, which means that we literally say to guides, if you are, for example, homophobic, we are not the right company for you, then go somewhere else. We are quite clear about our expectations in all our areas. Now, regarding sustainability, the beauty is that I would say 95% of our guides, they like to do this work, not because of it earns money, but because of their love for the areas that we visit. So they have a natural passion and love for the nature areas where we go to, which means that, as I said, 95% of them have also a natural passion to care for it and care for our planet. So it's actually where our expectations and plans come together with our expedition team. It's almost a natural match.
You mentioned the sustainability award, so it means that you also somehow incentivize employees and maybe also guides to bring new ideas and
absolutely,
live through it.
It's on, and unfortunately now with Corona, we haven't had any, how do you call it, face-to-face meetings with our guides and staff now for 18 months, I believe. But it is on the agenda, like, and also what we try to achieve is we're very small in the end and pragmatic family company. So if guides have ideas, please bring it up. And we don't have a lot of layers, so it's usually brought up by the head of our operations, and if she thinks it's a great idea, she passes the ideas immediately on to me. So it's not that it goes for 6 levels and then gets lost. And it's actually something that our guides really value. They can make a contribution to the company. And to give you just an example, this afternoon, I'm invited to a kind of workshop with our guides to talk about, and this is their initiative. It's not mine, it's not but they want to organize a workshop on how we as a company can improve on onboard facilities, product, and I'm sure sustainability will be part of it. So yeah, we are very proud of we have excellent guides that are have a lot of initiative, and we listen to them. They can come to us with their views and ideas.
You mentioned diversity, which I think is also an important part, and it does go with sustainability, because sustainability is wider than just environmental aspect. When talking about diversity, the question comes to my mind is about accessibility. How do you have any products for people with some physical disabilities, or do you have any offer for them, or how do you manage accessibility on board?
It's such a good question, because it indeed, and have a read at our diversity manifest. It's actually on our website and about us. We want to make dreams happen also for disabled people. Reality is that at some point, because of the nature of our product, there's simply safety limits on what we can do. But on the positive side, so on our new ships, we have also disability cabins, we have elevators, so disabled people should be able to move around the ship well and freely. The challenges come, a big part of our product experience is moving into the small zodiacs, so the inflatable boats, and go on a little zodiac cruise, and then of course step on land, where it's not uncommon that you have to step into some shallow water or sea. So there we certainly have just limitations on what we can offer disabled guests. But in my mind, even if they cannot join us on excursions or every excursions, people can have a great time. It was so funny experience myself. It was when I worked at Victory Cruise Lines. We got a booking request from a completely blind person. I got the sales team approaching me like, can we handle a completely blind person? So I asked the operations team, yeah, I mean, we can. But the key question is, will the person enjoy it? I mean, our product is about showing, it's about experiencing. But okay, the lady went on board, and funny enough, I was in the port when the ship arrived on a trip, and interesting, like I am, I thought like, I'm going to ask her how it was. Was it good, or was it just boring for her? Because she could not go on many excursions. She had to stay on board. She could not, see the beautiful views. And I had a chat with the lady, and the lady said, this was the best experience in my life, and I want to book again with you. So our concept about, but disabled people will not enjoy our product. No, we have to be more open-minded. And of course, there's always a safety aspect, but if they like to join us and we can care for them in a safe way, please, they're more than welcome.
I think also it's financially a big market. I mean, people with different issues, even women with children and trolleys, they are somehow disabled in a way that they cannot move that fast. So this is a huge market, and not many tour operators think about it.
Yeah.
What challenges have you faced throughout your journey in terms of trying to implement some environmental initiatives or social initiatives, like promoting diversity in the company, and how you have overcome them?
Yeah. Well, my learning is based on not just the last 3 years with Albatros expeditions, but also the years before. You made a good comment around you need to train and inform your staff, and that goes beyond than just your expedition staff. Everyone needs to know what you do and why you do it. So explain them. I give you an example, which was, I can now laugh about it a little bit, but so with I chartered a Russian nuclear icebreaker to go to the North Pole. And one of the things that is an absolute principle on everything that we do is, which is also just illegal, is you cannot feed animals. Animals need to remain wild. We can observe them if they approach us. We can observe them from a distance, but we cannot interact them and we cannot feed them. So and I was again myself on board of that trip. We briefed our guests around this very important topic, and everyone understood, and it was nice. And at some point, we saw a polar bear approaching the ship, we put the ship idle, let the polar bear approach, and unfortunately, it was a polar bear which was very skinny. I don't think the animal would survive. Clearly not successful with hunting, clearly hungry, but a rule is a rule. We cannot feed the animals. But while we were looking at the animal on the observation deck, we saw a window opening of the Russian crew, and the Russian crew started feeding the animal. And then we had to, we had a lot of critical questions from customers, like, why? What's, and they, of course, and they're right. They see that the crew, the ship crew, is part of your product. So you tell us not to feed it and why it's important, but then you're feeding it. So what I learned from that is, everyone on board of the ship, not only your expedition staff, not only your hotel staff, but also the technical guys working on the engines, need to understand what you stand for and why you do things.
And did you have a conversation with them afterwards?
Yes, and of course we apologized first of all to our customers, and then we had a discussion with the Russian crew about it, and put into, indeed, as a new procedure, learning that before a voyage on this type of voyages with ships that we don't own, we still need to have a briefing session for the full crew. That simply didn't exist at that time.
It's a good learning. And do you get any criticism of going to the polar areas, Arctic areas at all, like that you should not be going there because it's very fragile environment?
Yeah, sometimes these stories come up, but in generally, because we and also the associations that we are part of, IATO, IECO, have such a good reputation of managing these operations. There's actually hardly any negative comments around it. If there are these comments, it's usually from people that really don't have any understanding on what's going on there. They are more made from an ignorant mode than from an attacking mode. It's interesting that over the years, there's always a few scientists that, especially in Antarctica, try to leverage the opinion that tourism should not be part of it. But I was once part of a discussion forum with scientists from Antarctica, and two of them took this position, like, oh, but tourists should really not visit Antarctica. And then two other scientists, I was not part of, or I didn't have to react. The other two scientists said, well, we have experienced a couple of these visits of expedition cruise ships, and the measures that these tourists and tourist companies take in their visits are an example for many of our scientific communities. We can learn from them how to manage visits and have the smallest impact as possible. And I thought I'd have to react because they were actually making my point. But thinking about it, I thought, like, yeah, that's a fair comment, because if you start visiting bases in Antarctica, some of them are extremely well managed and clean. But there's also bases where they leave rubbish outside, are clearly having a more negative impact on the area than absolutely necessary. So, yeah. Sorry, that was a long answer, but my main comment: these comments exist, but we have to work hand in hand with scientists and other interest groups. It's important. I think it's important that we go there, and we all have to, do our parts to save these areas.
Have you done some third-party certification? Let's say that would be like to people who are not sure, that you would show, hey, we are certified, all good, or for other reasons, going through third-party certification for sustainable tourism or maybe B Corp certification?
Yeah, no, in these cases, if we talk about the polar regions, there's not something like a certification, but if you become a member of IATO, which is for Antarctica, or IECO, which is for the Arctic, they have an extensive line of policies that need to be followed. And that includes also additional training for staff. So every staff member that goes to Antarctica needs to pass an IATO test before we can employ them. So that is for us not, it's not a certificate, but it is the highest tourism management policies for the areas that we visit. You talk about B Corp. So actually, just before Corona started, we had a look at these certifications, which there's a couple of them, and we didn't end to have a discussion on. We didn't come to a conclusion which one is best or best applicable. Our conclusion at that time was that, you know, the United Nations Compact, Global Compact program, that is something that is, you know, global. The United Nations are an institute that is a seriously independent, a program. It's you can't get certificated by it, but at least you have to report against it, and you have to report your improvements in your work against it. So I'm not sure if anyone will read it, but
I do. At least some crazy folks, I think they do.
uh,
All the reports, and I think some of your partners would also as well, and maybe for bigger companies as well, any stakeholders, and now non-financial reporting that is obligatory for corporations in Europe. So I think we are going this way, and reporting and sustainability reporting is becoming more and more important. So I think that UN Global Compact is a great approach.
yeah, nice.
So this is very great. And just to finish, if you could give some advice to tour operators visiting beautiful nature areas, but maybe not only, if they want to start their sustainability journey, why should they, and what would be your suggestions for the next 2-3 things that they can do?
Where to start is actually, if you I would start, well, first of all, with as leaders with a vision. So think about where you would like to go to. Where would you like to be in 2030? But then the good thing is, if you have good employees, if you have good staff, you don't have to, as leaders, create everything yourself. And if I just look, indeed, I mentioned our guides, our staff, they have so many ideas. So if you explain where you think the company should go to, just listen to your staff, listen to your suppliers, listen to your customers, and they will come up with plenty of ideas to to action your vision. So simple tip is listen and involve, invite people around you to be part of this journey. It's it's not a plan, it should be a journey.
That's a great tip. And what about Albatros exhibition in 2030? Imagine that coronavirus is soon over. Where you want to be?
Yeah, well, I would like to be still having the lowest emissions per passenger, absolutely. But by that time, I hope that we can start, I wanted to say experimenting. I hope experimenting is over then, that we can have more sustainable fuels to be used. And one big step that we still want to make, so we have focused very much on reduction of the impact, because in the end, that is the most important thing. The next phase in our journey is also compensation. So I see a lot of companies have started with compensation, and we don't think that is right, because if you start off with compensation, you might not have the incentive anymore to reduce, and reduce should always be the first priority. But we know that we also need to look at compensation programs. And unfortunately, this is, you probably know as an expert, quite a jungle with all the projects available, and some are actually not that good. And yes, you can start buying trees and planting trees in areas, but if 5 kilometers from the place where you plant trees, they cutting trees with a speed that is twice as fast. Yeah, we have not developed our thinking over there, but that we need to start compensating as well. I think that's a given.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we've went through all the questions, so it's been an interesting conversation. I hope you enjoyed as well.
Okay, yeah, and if there's any more questions, just let me know. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.